Now, we turn our attention to a project which, along with housing and perhaps Bondi, has attracted significant attention in recent times. I'm talking of high-speed rail. Now, there's probably at least 300 people in the room here, and I've probably spoken to all of you. Roughly 280 have told me that they're working on the business case for this project or part of some consortia that is. So, it seems that you all want to know where this nation-building, region-shaping, life-changing project currently sits. Is high-speed rail fact or fantasy? A partial connection, a full corridor? Is it tunnelled or overland? Is it fast, faster or fastest? Central, Sydney Olympic Park, Parramatta, Bradfield, all of the questions. So who better to ask these questions of than the man himself, CEO of the High Speed Rail Authority, Tim Parker. Ladies and gentlemen, as I invite Tim to the stage, please make him welcome. Thank you.
Wow, what a welcome. Look, firstly, I really enjoy Western Sydney Dialogue. I've been coming for many years, and if nothing else, they know how to get under your skin and have a debate. So this is really good. So I'm going to answer some of the questions, perhaps not all the questions, but let's proceed. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, sea and community. We pay respect to them and the cultures and to the elders past and present. Quick little bit of agenda. We'll start off with a little bit about who High Speed Rail Authority are, and then we'll move on to, of course, a video. So, very important to understand, High Speed Rail Authority has been set up by the Commonwealth. We've been set up to develop a national high-speed rail. Not a high-speed link, but a national high-speed rail. What we've been asked to do is to focus this year on a Sydney to Newcastle business case and also a product definition report. The product definition report is really building on some of the work that was done in the past. We had a 2013 study done. We've also had some work done by New South Wales. Basically, the product definition report sets the blueprint for what a high-speed rail network would look like in Australia and what it would be. The business case then picks up those criteria and applies it to the Sydney to Newcastle section. Let's play the video now.
A new generation high-speed railway network is being planned for Australia. The dawn of new opportunities for regions, cities and communities. The Australian Government's High Speed Rail Authority is preparing how to deliver the proposed first line, connecting Newcastle to Sydney in about an hour on a dedicated new railway. And from the Central Coast, it will be just half an hour to either Newcastle or Sydney. Journeys will be more than twice as fast as today on new high-speed trains, travelling at more than 250 kilometres an hour. Using trains like those currently operating around the world on more than 70,000 kilometres of high-speed rail networks. There would be onboard conveniences like high-speed Wi-Fi, food and beverage, luggage storage, and easy access on and off the train. You could start your workday on the train, not in the office. Or go with family and friends to a sporting event or concert and be back the same night. As a potential future high-speed rail network grows, it could take about an hour and a half to travel from Canberra to Sydney, 45 minutes from the Gold Coast to Brisbane, and 4 hours from Sydney to Brisbane or from Sydney to Melbourne. Regions and cities will be connected by quick, convenient and comfortable high-speed rail services. There will be more job and lifestyle choices for where to live, work and learn. Unlocking greater housing options and creating new economic opportunities in sectors like regional tourism, small business and knowledge industries. High-speed rail will deliver generations of opportunities for Australians. Welcome aboard.
Okay, so that's the big picture. I think it's important to understand this is not a short-term project. This is a program of work that'll take many years to deliver. However, I think part of it is to understand what it will do for people who live in the regions. It's very much a regional economic project. When you go and talk to people in the regions, and we've spent quite a lot of time, the difference that this will provide is significant. I was talking to someone recently who travels from Newcastle to Sydney every day. They said their average journey time is about 3 hours. So that's 30 hours a week commuting, 40 hours a week working, 70 hours. You reduce that to 10 hours of commuting, and you actually have a decent service that's run on time. Absolutely a fundamental change. But it's not just about work. It's also about education. It's about medical services. It really is all about connecting. And that's really the idea. And as I said, you have to start somewhere. And I think government's chosen a very sensible Sydney to Newcastle. But when we look at the work we're doing on Sydney to Newcastle, it's equally applicable for Melbourne and for Brisbane, and even going down to Canberra. So there's lots to like about the project. The business case. We had an undertaking to finish the business case, and thank you for the 278 people in the room that are working on it. Why are you here? You should be back there. The business case is, we've done the analysis now, we're coming to the end of the business case. We will be submitting the business case just before Christmas. That will include analysis of different options, various stations. It'll include what does the train look like, where should it go, how much will it cost, what are the benefits. And I think it's really important. We've looked at this project very much around what will the value that this project will bring, not necessarily what will it cost. And I think that's really important for these large, long-scale projects. And that's why we're doing things a little bit different with respect to a range of things. One of the questions often asked is why Sydney to Newcastle? So currently Sydney to Newcastle, it is one of the largest growing areas. 1.2 million people there by early 2020s. I think it's also to look at what's actually currently happening. At the moment, Sydney to Newcastle, 15 million passengers, I say do the journey. I think the word that I got told was endure the journey rather than do the journey. It's a very busy line. It's used for both passenger and freight. The reliability in that case is difficult. You also have the M1, which has about 30 million passengers, or car travel, and car and lorry travel up and down there. So that is a very busy corridor. And that's really one of the reasons why, if we don't do this, often people say, well, what's the do nothing? And the do nothing is either expand the M1 or try and do very, very expensive work on an existing very, very busy line. As I said, the journey time at the moment, coming up to about an average of 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours, we're looking at a journey of an hour. That fundamentally changed how people live and work. A lot of talk about stations, and I'm going to take the book, thank you very much, Mr. Brown, about what you think. Everyone's got a view on a station, and that's fine. I think I've had 9 years on Metro. There's always a debate where to put the stations. We'll go through and we'll do an analysis. We've done that work. We'll be looking up a recommendation to government, and ultimately government will make the decision on stations. But one of the really important things about these stations is how well is it connected? Are the people around there? And what benefits putting a station in that location will it generate? And that's the process we've been, to try and optimise the best value for where the stations go. So when we talk about benefits, one of the things about the 2013 study was very much around how do I get from A to B really, really quickly? And that is one thing that high-speed rail does very well. But what it does, which is probably more important, is the regional benefits. And therefore, just having a train that goes from A to B really quickly doesn't actually fulfill the benefits. So we have looked at where do we actually stop along the way to actually drive those economic benefits. The biggest benefits we've seen are around housing and employment. Actually connecting regions to the city provides huge opportunities for housing and region. Also social equality. At the moment, people in the city, we enjoy great services. People in the regions don't. By having a high-speed connection, they can access education, they can access medical. Also, it's very sustainable. I think we've got a net zero by 2050. High-speed rail is probably the most efficient way of carrying passengers over a long distance, significantly more sustainable than air travel. So what is the product? So I think the first thing to say is that we're not looking at designing a commuter railway. It will be used by commuters, but it's not a commuter railway. This is building on tried and trusted. It's a national railway. It will have trains that go up to 320 kilometres. It's also going to be on a dedicated network. So in other words, we're not going to interfere with the existing. That will allow people who are currently using the existings to transfer, which will free up freight paths and other paths. We've been through the journey times. The journey times we've got here are not make-believe. They're based on what's actually been experienced overseas. 4 hours to, and when we talk Melbourne to Sydney, the airline people say it's an hour and a half. I don't think there's anyone in the room that's got to Melbourne in an hour and a half. When you go CBD to CBD, 4 hours is very, very competitive. Also, the product itself, it's not perhaps like some of our existing trains. It will have good Wi-Fi, it will have level access, and also some food and beverage along the way. I think that's really part of this, is that you have to think of high speed as a much, much better way of travelling. It's a sort of renaissance of trains. Often our train services are not considered as good as they should be. I mean, I think the current travel time to Melbourne is about 11 hours. Brisbane's something very similar. This will fundamentally change people's attitude. I think the other thing, when we've been talking to the community, is how do you get people out of their cars? It's really hard. And when you look at what happens in Sydney, you add parking, you add tolls. The ability to get on a train, say at Central Coast, and get into the city, no tolls, no parking, and brings you into the city, is very, very attractive. So we have to think about this as a new way of travel. I remember in the early days of Metro, we had a great deal of difficulty trying to explain to people that Metro wasn't just a train, it was something else. High speed is in the same category. It's a different product. It's a much better product for long distance travel. I want to talk a little bit about our approach to this. One of the things our industry has spent a long time is talking about modern methods of construction. And I have to say, it's mainly talk. We haven't actually achieved much in the last few years. What we're looking at doing is mandating it, saying we actually want our construction productivity to be improved. One of the big drawbacks of that is, that's great, but how are we going to get it manufactured? So part of our proposal to government is to actually build an advanced manufacturing facility. Now that may be several facilities, but again, it does a couple of things. One is it begins to reduce work on site, but it also begins to build a much needed manufacturing industry. And these sites can be in the regions. I think the other thing that's really important here is we haven't called it a high-speed advanced manufacturing facility. It is simply an advanced manufacturing facility. This project will pay for it. However, it can be used for schools, hospitals, roads, and others. Again, it's trying to move our industry into a more productive area. Last but not least, generations of opportunities. When I took this role on, I had a number of people laughing. I don't know why. I've also had the Utopia episode played to me too many times. I can almost recant it. Why now? Or why are you doing it at all? A lot of things have changed since 2013. I think we understand the importance of sustainability. I think from an Australian point of view, often we talk about housing. We've been talking about it all morning, so I'm not going to go on about it. But as a country, we're not short of land. We're not short of land. We've got lots of it. What we're short of is well-connected land. And that's one of the things that high-speed rail does. It connects the regions to the city. And that's why I think this is a long-term project. Don't get caught out on this or that. The key to this project is actually to move forward. This project will benefit the West as well as the rest of Sydney. But you have to remember, it's just the beginning. So I'd like to thank you all.